dean, distinguished guests, loved ones, faculty, staff, and my dear friends, the amazing Oxford MBA class of 2024. It's been an absolute privilege to serve as your co-president this year, and it is an honor to address you today. Some of you might be wondering, what even does a student council president do? Hopefully, if Hannah and I did our jobs right, none of those wondering are our classmates. But for the uninitiated, being president involves working with an amazing student council to shape the MBA experience of over 330 high-achieving, energetic people with exacting standards. Some might liken it to being president of a company, a CEO of a company, but in reality, it was more like being an executive assistant to 330 very demanding CEOs. Shout out to admin staff everywhere, especially our dear MBA admin. Nothing will get done without you. However, we could not have had this epic transformative year without each and every one of you, my dear classmates. It takes everyone to build a strong community, and ours is thriving. In a world that has become more individualistic and closed off, many of you gave freely of your energy, time, and brilliance. You showed up in big and small ways, from answering the same questions many times over in our WhatsApp group, to cooking meals for sleep-deprived classmates who became parents this year. You were wonderful. Where others may have disengaged after unsuccessful campaigns for student council, many of you did the opposite. You developed initiatives to help our cohort form deeper connections. You threw the best party, the MBA ball, the school has ever seen, and created a stunning collection of our memories, the yearbook you all can't stop admiring. While some of us were still deciding if we wanted to serve and in what capacity, some of you dove headfirst into supporting the cohort without waiting for a title or for permission. You organized our very first trek, created a tool to help us meet a random classmate each week, launched our cohort's Instagram page, and so much more, all in the first 3 weeks. You were a shoulder to cry on for many. You said something others were too shy or afraid to say in class. You stood up for someone. You were and are an important fabric of our cohort. If you couldn't already tell, my speech is about community and service. Depending on how hungover you are this morning, I have some good and some bad news. The good news is my speech is almost done. The bad news is we're getting to the words of advice portion of the speech. As we leave our magical Oxford bubble for the real world and our journey as a cohort enters a new phase, I invite you to reflect on the year with 2 questions. The first is, who is included in your community? I'm so proud of how warm, open, and inclusive our cohort has been this year. However, as MBAs on the lookout for the next challenge and adventure, we know there's always room for improvement. While it's natural to gravitate towards the familiar or be strategic about the relationships you make, I invite you to be intentional about the communities you cultivate. One of the many reasons for the world's current ills is that our leaders narrowly define who is included in their communities. My second question is, how do you serve your community? People exist on a spectrum of giving and taking. And if you're honest with yourself, you know where you fall on this spectrum. Studies have shown that societies expect women to be more communal and men to be more individualistic, which becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. However, cultural norms valued by community influence those outcomes. I am incredibly proud that our cohort largely defied those stereotypes, and men were amongst the biggest contributors to our community. Could it be because our cohort was the first to exceed gender parity at 51% women and that shaped our culture? Maybe. But I'll also give some credit to you amazing men. You were top tier. Now is the time I challenge those of us whose default falls more on the receiving end of the spectrum. I invite you to check in periodically with yourself and ask, how can I contribute to my community's flourishing today, this week, this year? If you're someone who directs and suggests and has, recommendations, I encourage you to get in the arena, get your hands dirty, and execute. I would be remiss if I spoke about service to others without mentioning service to self. Although your spirit is willing and your enthusiasm might be limitless, your body and time, unfortunately, aren't. Ask me, I know. Learn those limits and don't omit yourself from your list of priorities. Otherwise, you risk the joy you receive from serving curdling into burnout or worse, resentment. I invite you to ask yourself periodically, how can I take care of myself today, this week, this month, this year? You cannot pour into others if your cup is empty or broken. Now, as a Yoruba girl from Nigeria, a speech is incomplete without a few proverbs. So I'll leave you with 3. Agbajo owo la fin soya. This means our strength is in our collective effort. Ẹni tó fi ọkàn sílùú nílùú máa ń rántí títí láé, which means they that serve community diligently will never be forgotten. And ilé ni a ti ń kọ́ ẹ̀ṣọ́ ròde, which means what you want to put out into the world starts from within. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations.